Welcome to Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad, the podcast that prepares you for one of life's toughest yet inevitable moments, stepping in when your parents need you most. Hosted by Chris Spade, a senior real estate specialist with Keller Williams Realty. We'll dive deep into more than just moving. We're talking smart financial planning, making tough decisions with confidence, and strategies to avoid being caught in crisis mode. Join us for real stories, expert insights, and actionable steps to stay ahead of the curve. Now, here's your host, Chris Spade.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad, a Gen Xer's guide to navigating our lives and helping our parents as they are aging. My name is Chris Spade. I'm your host, and I wanted to do this inaugural episode so everybody could kind of understand where I'm coming from and how I ended up here doing a podcast about aging parents as a real estate agent. I think that that's important. So let's start a little bit back at the beginning of what, well, I'm going to take you back 18 years briefly, fast forward to about 4 years ago, and then we're going to get really into why I'm doing this. I got into real estate 18 years ago after a 10-year career as a journalist here in San Diego. I did radio and television for 10 years, loved it, wasn't very happy at the end of my career, and decided to get into real estate after losing my mother to a car crash. And then once I decided to make that move into real estate, lived through the worst economic time that I could have in real estate, the Great Recession. Did a lot of short sales and foreclosures, helped a lot of people out of a bad situation, did all of that. And then about 4 years ago during COVID, I started working with a lot more seniors. A few more here and there I was working with, and I ended up getting certified. I have an SRES certification, which is called a Senior Residential Real Estate Specialist. And basically what that is, it's a designation you can get through the National Association of Realtors that goes and kind of teaches you how to work with seniors. And it came in very, very handy working with some of the seniors that I worked with. But there again, it's one of these certifications you can get, and it's not, overwhelming. It's just, it is what it is. And then something happened to me at the end of August. I have a very, very dear friend of mine, and she's in her late 70s. I was on my way to Temecula with my husband and my very good friend, and we were going up on a Friday to go wine tasting and pick up our wine at our wine club. And while we were in Escondido on our way up there, I ended up getting a phone call from my friend's spouse, who has been losing her faculties over the last several years, and we've all noticed that dementia had been creeping up on her, and it was getting bad. But in that moment, she had a moment of clarity to give me a call and let me know that my friend had fallen in the hallway. And so in that moment, we whipped the car around from Escondido. And if you're not from San Diego or Southern California, my friend lived in North Park, which was, a good 30 minutes away from where we already were. We were halfway to where we were going to get to go wine tasting, flipped the car around quickly, and ended up back in North Park about 30 minutes later. When I got into the house was unlocked, thankfully. Got into the house, and my friend was laying in the hallway, black eyes from a fall that she had taken, and was laying on her back. And I could see that her hip was popped out. Immediately freaked out, and she said, "Hey, can you just help me up?" And I was like, I don't think I can do that because something's not right here. I'm no medical professional, but something's not right. Ended up calling the fire department. The fire department and ambulance ended up coming. Meanwhile, my friend's spouse gone, taken off, gone somewhere, don't know where, but just gone. And so, fire department is there, ambulance is there. They live in an upstairs unit where it's about 15 steps to get to the parking area, the parking lot. So we had 6 guys carrying her down 15 stairs just to get to the ambulance. And that ended up in a trip to the emergency room, the trauma center, multiple tests. In the meantime, I told the paramedics, I said, listen, I'm not family. I'm not, I'm just a friend. I'm concerned. I explained that my friend's spouse has dementia and we don't know where she is. We have no idea where she is right now. And in that moment, she came whipping around the corner into the parking garage and asked, well, what was going on? Why is my friend being put into the back of the ambulance? And so the paramedics and the fire department got it in that moment that this is a pretty serious thing. So they ended up giving her my contact information, and while my friend was in the hospital, had made me their gave me the ability to make decisions, healthcare directive decisions, which I did not know. And so a couple days after she had gotten into the hospital, her doctor was calling me to tell me that she was being transferred to a skilled nursing facility. That ended up being one of the best things for her, going to this skilled nursing facility, because they got her back up. It turns out she had a broken pelvis. They said surgery wasn't going to be an option, and that this would recover. She would recover from this. And in all of that, again, I still did not know that I was made the person to make healthcare decisions. And so her doctor calls me and starts going through all these personal things. And I had to stop her and I said, do you even have permission to tell me this? And this is when the doctor said, oh, you're on the list to make all the healthcare decisions for her. Did you not know that? And I said, no, I did not. And I was in my car on the way to an appointment. And I simply kind of had a little bit of a freak out in that moment because I was given the responsibility to make decisions, and my friend had a DNR, or a do not resuscitate, that was already on file. I did not know any of this, and so she had asked me if we had made or talked about any end of life care decisions, which we had not. So, needless to say, I was slightly concerned about that. And so my friend ends up in the skilled nursing facility, which was great. They got her back up, got her, walking on a walker, was able to teach her how to go up and down stairs again, do all the things that she needed to do. And, like I said, she was in her late 70s. And so moving was more difficult for her. Now, while this was all going on, her wife, back at the house, I was going back and forth every other day to check on her. And some days she would be there, some days she wouldn't be there. I didn't know where she was some days. And so, anyway, it was just kind of difficult to keep track of her because these two women who have been a huge part of my life didn't necessarily have anyone else at that time to help take care of them. So I would go back and forth and check in on her wife. And when I would go in there, the house was just a mess, right? It was an absolute mess. And we went over there and we cleaned it out best we could. But the big reason it was a mess is not because they're messy people, but just because they couldn't get down the stairs. And that made things really, really difficult, is they could not get down the stairs. And so we went over there and we just threw out bags and bags of trash and recycled and newspapers and what have you. It was just getting a little bit out of control. Well, my friend ended up being in this rehab skilled nursing facility for several weeks, probably about 2.5, almost 3 weeks was in this skilled nursing facility. Well, in that time, my friend called, and apparently her wife, now I was literally heading over there to check on her, decided she was going to go somewhere. Didn't remember where she went. She thinks she went down to the park to go for a walk in her car and couldn't find her car anywhere. And so I said, listen, I'll go look for the car. I'll go see if I can find it. I drove down there. I couldn't find the car. The car wasn't there. I don't know where the car was. We could not find the car anywhere. And when you're dealing with someone with dementia, the thing I've learned in such a short period of time is they think they know what they've done, but in reality, they don't know what they've done. And so it's you get a little bit frustrated. And what I was really working hard to do, because mind you, I had my life, I had my house, I had my business and work, selling real estate, all that's going on. And here I'm kind of thrust into all of this. So it was just a little bit high stress, right? So anyway, I try to find the car, can't find the car. She can't find anything with a license plate number on it. I'm assuming the car has been towed and it's probably sitting in a tow yard somewhere. But quite honestly, I didn't have the bandwidth to find where the car was. Meanwhile, I'm giving updates and check-ins to my friend who's in the skilled nursing facility saying, hey, this is what's going on back at your house right now. Well, while all this is going on, I met there was this wonderful woman that came into their lives by the name of Monica Flynn, who you will hear from. She's a placement agent who helps place seniors in assisted living communities or whatever you need, nursing homes, whatever. She helps place people, and you'll hear from her on one of our podcasts. And she was kind of giving them options about what is viable and where they can go for assistance. And Monica and I ended up meeting later on over lunch, and she just gave me a wealth of knowledge and experts that I'm going to be able to bring onto the podcast. But one of the things that happened, again, I was on my way over to the house to go check up on my friend's spouse, and I got a phone call from my friend, and she said, hey, I need you to go over the house, make sure it's locked. She said that her spouse was in the emergency at UCSD because she decided she was going to go try to find the car, and she needed a ride to where she thought the car was, so she started hitching a ride with the UPS guy. Now, I'm not sure if any of this sounds familiar to any of you or if this has ever happened to you, but my friend's spouse ended up in the ER, but because my friend's spouse was cooperative and everything was going the way it should be, the hospital would not keep her there, which is where Monica stepped in, the placement agent, and helped place her spouse into a memory care facility. And that is where she is to this day, being very well cared for. A veteran, she's being very well cared for in this memory care facility. And, we've been going to go visit and talking with her and making sure she's okay. But that kind of led me down this path because during all of this, I'm learning very quickly about, one, what does it mean to be someone's healthcare directive? Number two, do they have a trust in place? And in this case, they don't. So what does that mean for the future? 3, if your spouse has dementia, do you have to get conservatorship over them? So I had to get in touch with different attorneys to ask some questions about whether or not this is possible. 4, is there any other funds available from the VA that will help pay for the care for her to get in the memory care facility? So there's all these questions, and because I was in crisis mode, I had to learn a lot in a very short period of time, and these are some things that I didn't learn with my designation that I got from the National Association of Realtors. So I figured if there are things that I don't know, there are probably things that you don't know. And so I wanted to bring this podcast to you, and teach you the things that I've learned in such a short period of time. So on this podcast, Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad, our Gen Xer's guide to living life and navigating our aging parents, we're going to talk about estate planning. Okay, that's one of the big things. We're going to talk about how to place our parents in the correct facility. We're going to talk about Medi-Cal, Medicare. We're going to talk about end-of-life care. We're going to talk about funeral planning. We are going to talk about going to the hospital. We're going to talk about elderly abuse. We're going to talk about all different kinds of things on this podcast that is going to make sure that if you end up in this mode, this crisis mode, that hopefully it will be just a little bit less than what I've had to deal with. And so this is how I ended up here. This is why I decided to start Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad. And we're going to hear some personal stories. I've got a lot of great people. Brandon Burns is going to talk about 1031 exchanges, how to exchange your parents into other things so they don't have to deal with tenants, trash, taxes, and termites. We're going to talk about Delaware statutory trusts. We're going to talk about tax savings. We're going to get on with some financial planners. So all these things are going to come together as we start going through this process, and hopefully you will find some value in this. But I just wanted to start there so that way you knew where I was coming from and why I'm starting this podcast. And if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me. My number, 619-818-2992. If you can't wait to get through all these podcasts, then that's fine. I can help you. I know a lot of people now, and I know a lot of things that I didn't know before. So thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode.